Good morning, everyone, and welcome back. It is FPC Radio Live. It is Monday, March the 13th, 2023, and today is officially, later this afternoon, the start of the legal tampering period in the NFL, which is basically the start of free agency because, we've seen what's happened over the last few years during this 2-day period where teams are, quote-unquote, first reaching out to free agents, and I say that very sarcastically. These deals have obviously been discussed behind closed doors a lot, some of them, especially the ones that really come down the pipeline very early, but it should be an exciting day. It should be an exciting week. And John, thank you, Aaron Rodgers, for not choosing a team while we were off the air at the end of last week, and hopefully we'll be able to break it live here on FPC Radio.
Well, I spoke to Aaron over the weekend.
Of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course I did, because, I'm a close confidant, and he said he'd hold off until we're back on the air, so that was nice of Aaron. I think it's going to happen on Wednesday for some reason. Appropriately, the 15th of March, the Ides of March, right? Doesn't it make sense that
I like it.
Aaron Rodgers would make his decision then, canceling of all debts, the day that Julius Caesar was stabbed 22 times by the Roman Senate. So I think that's when it's going to happen. So be ready for Wednesday for Aaron Rodgers to be a jet.
Yeah, I was going to say, has this dragging on of the decision. Now, again, I'm not faulting him for it, but, he did say it was going to happen relatively quickly, and he seems to be kind of stringing us along just a little bit, which I don't mind. I like it. Give it a little bit of drama, very, very Brett Favre-like, and there's a lot of there's a lot of things we can compare to Brett Favre, especially if Aaron ends up in Minnesota in 2024. I was going to ask you, does this delaying change what you feel or what we talked about last week? And it's like, yeah, he's probably going to be a New York Jet.
No, I think it's going to happen unless he decides to retire. It's pretty apparent the Packers don't want him back. I mean, Mark Murphy was quoted over the weekend. It wasn't quoted, and he actually said it. You could hear it, that they're moving on. He didn't say it directly like that, but in his own words, he hinted to that or was pretty strong about that. So if Rodgers decides he's going to nix any trades anywhere, because he could, he doesn't necessarily have a no-trade contract, but, he threatens to retire if he's traded, then the Packers are stuck with him and they owe him all that money. Does he show up to camp as Jordan Love's backup? I mean, that wouldn't be much of a distraction, would it? Because actually, that's what was going to happen in 2008. If Favre showed up in 2008, he was going to be backing up Aaron Rodgers. So obviously, at that point, okay, go ahead and trade me to the Jets. So yeah, he can end up a Jet. I just think that we know Aaron Rodgers pretty well, or at least we think we know him well, although never met the man, and he's my favorite player of all time. And I think he's now trending to become your favorite quarterback too.
Active
quarterback. Mr. Brady, there's still a 5% chance he somehow is playing in 2023.
Look, I'm not completely that's the thing. Until week one kicks off and he is literally not under center taking the snap, that I'm gonna hold out just a little bit of hope that he'll still continue to play. But look, I mean, Aaron Rodgers, they said over the weekend. Now another report came out, kind of not saying this was completely true, but the two teams pretty much have the framework of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's going to be overly complicated anyways to get a deal because of, neither team really has leverage, if you think about it,
right.
Which is a weird thing because normally at least one team has it, or at least, each team has something that they can hang over. It's like, no, the only person who has leverage right now is Aaron Rodgers. And even that's a little bit finite because, like you said, I mean, if he decides to pull I'm going to retire or I don't want to go anywhere, too bad, you're going to be sitting on the bench next season. So, if you want that, which again, I mean, to sit on the bench and earn as much as money as he's going to earn next year, that's not a terrible thing. But I'm assuming he either wants to play or he doesn't. And if he doesn't, he's going to retire, and I don't think he's going to sit on the bench. So ultimately, his only choice is the Jets. The Jets have missed out on Derek Carr. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but the free agent veteran quarterback market is drying up pretty quickly, and the options really are limited. I mean, it's left to like Baker Mayfield. Perhaps maybe you swing the fences for a deal on Lamar Jackson, but that's very unlikely, and you're much better off trying to pry Aaron Rodgers away and make your team better. And for the Packers, everyone knows, like you said, that they don't want him. I mean, they've all but said, we don't want Aaron Rodgers next season. And that obviously takes away your leverage because teams know you want to trade him away. So this deal shouldn't be that complicated. It shouldn't really be that much. Maybe a third round pick plus future draft picks. I just don't see it being that much. And to your point, it's going to happen probably in the next couple of days because it's best for all parties to just resolve this before, you get too deep into free agency.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if it's not done in a week and the Jets are still waiting for an answer, and Jimmy Garoppolo goes and signs elsewhere, goes to the Raiders, I mean, he wouldn't be a bad backup option after Aaron Rodgers decides not to go to the Jets. So, yeah, there's a lot of things that have to happen. Maybe the Jets do decide to get into the Lamar Jackson sweepstakes. Obviously, the compensation would be 2 first-round picks and a boatload of money. It's going to be a boatload of money for Aaron Rodgers. But like you said, Ian, the framework seems to be in place with the Packers and Jets. Maybe it's a conditional third. So if he plays so much and the team advances to a certain round, maybe it moves up to a second-round pick. The other thing they have to figure out is money. Like, is Aaron Rodgers going to rework his deal? He's owed $60 million next year. He's the highest paid athlete in American sports right now. So how is that going to be divvied up? Is Green Bay going to pay part of it? How much is the Jets going to pay? Those types of things. I couldn't care less about that stuff, to be honest with you, because I'm not a CPA. So, let them work that out. The other thing is, how committed is he? Right. Yeah. So if the Jets are going to go put out 60, 80, $100 million, because it's $110 million over the next 2 years, how committed is he? If I'm Woody Johnson, he flew out to Southern California. Billionaires don't generally get on a plane and fly to chase someone. It's usually the other way around. So he goes out there with Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh and Nathaniel Hackett. I don't think Kelly Olynyk was on that trip. He did try to bring Kevin Durant back to the Celtics. Didn't work out. But I'm sure Woody Johnson's going to at some point say, Aaron, we'd love to have you. We want you. We think we've got a really good team. Can you show up for OTAs? Can you be committed? Can you work with the young receivers? Are you going to be all in the way Brady was in 2020 with Tampa? Remember, he was breaking rules to get on the practice field during COVID, right? So that's going to be the biggest question. Paying them is no problem. These guys have all sorts of money, but how committed is Aaron Rodgers going to be? Is he going to show up in training camp looking like Nick Cage again in Con Air and then just kind of roll his eyes when someone drops a pass early in the game? Then you're going to be stuck with the same attitude, poor attitude that the Packers dealt with last year. The guy can still play. I don't doubt that in the least. How committed is he? That's the big question.
Yeah, and look, I mean, that's a huge question, and that's something that, fair or not, has been, an issue with Aaron Rodgers the last year or so. I mean, just where is he mentally? Is he at the point where he's like, look, I got so much money and it'd be foolish to walk away from this money right now, so I'm just going to go through the motions? And maybe that's the case. I mean, maybe it is, and so be it. And like I said, I say it all the time. These players should get every ounce of or every dollar, every penny that they're owed, and as much as they can before they retire. Even superstars like Aaron Rodgers, who already has a boatload of money. It doesn't mean that it doesn't come with repercussions, because if the manner in which you get that is by just showing up, well, you can't just show up in the NFL and win. You can't. Certainly not in the AFC, and certainly not with a team like the Jets, who haven't won in, well, before we walked on the moon. So it's been it's going to be a roller coaster of an experience one way or the other when you bring in Aaron Rodgers. You just hope that it's, a modern, safe roller coaster and not the old creaky wooden ones that feel like they're going to fall apart at any second, because that could be dangerous and certainly something that could potentially set the Jets franchise back even more, and it sounds crazy to think, like, how can you do that? Well, you do that by disrupting the growth. And it doesn't mean that they were on the path of certain success because, well, they missed on the quarterback. So, but the problem is like, you still have some youth on this defense and talent across the board. And if you bring in a guy like Aaron Rodgers, not only could he elevate it, he could also deflate it with attitude problems, with, creating tension in the locker room that didn't exist beforehand. Because I think the entire team was united against Zach Wilson. Perhaps they could be united against Aaron Rodgers too, but unfortunately, he's too much of a alpha superstar that's going to cause a lot of problems. So this move is not without risk on many players' parts or many parties involved with all this. It could be a risk for Green Bay, although their risk is far less great because again they're at the point now where it's like we're done with the guy. It doesn't really matter necessarily what they get back because they already have what they think is their quarterback of the future. It could be risky for the Jets, and it could also be risky for Aaron Rodgers because if he goes to another team, John, and has a bad season, now he's a guy who's had, Tom Brady had his first sub 500 season in year 23, which is incredible. He's already had a couple of those in his career. If he goes to the Jets and he's just not good, that hurts his legacy. This isn't Tom Brady with 6 Super Bowls to hang his shoulder, hang his hat on if he goes to Tampa Bay and doesn't win. Fortunately for Tom Brady and fortunately for Tampa Bay, he did go to Tampa and win. So, but this is not the same thing. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is a great quarterback, no doubt about it, future Hall of Famer, all that. But there's much more on the line for his legacy if he were to move and either win or not win. And like I said, I mean, if it's a bad season, then I think it hurts it quite a bit.
Yeah, without question. And I think that comparison will be there, right? Because Brady had a down 2019, seemed not interested, wanted to move on, then goes to Tampa, wins the Super Bowl, turned a 7-9 team into a Super Bowl championship team. Aaron Rodgers looked disinterested last year. They were 8-9. They missed the playoffs. He didn't play all that well. So now he's going to move on to the Jets if this deal goes through. 7-10 team that looks like it's ready to win, right? With an elite defense and some nice weapons on offense. If he goes there and they're 9-8 and barely make the playoffs and get bounced in the first round, that's going to be a little bit of a knock against them because you would think that even with competent quarterback play last year, the Jets probably are a 10-7 team, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, the two games against the Patriots, if they have competent quarterback play, they beat the Patriots twice instead of the Patriots beating them. I mean, those games were really close.
Well,
so that would have given them 9 wins. So add another one, and there was just competent play, let alone a future Hall of Famer.
Yeah, and look, I mean, there's a, people will be like, oh, but it's the Jets. Well, guess what? Tampa was a worse franchise than the Jets, if you can believe it. So the comparisons are there. You can argue too, and trust me, plenty of people have argued and then some that this was a team ready to win. Yeah, they had talent, just like the Jets have talent. They had a team that they had a season the year before that. Hey, you get a little bit better quarterback play, maybe you are over 500 and not sub 500. So there's a lot of similarities. People would bring up, well, Aaron will be 40. Well, guess what? Tom was 42. So, there's no excuse there. So, yes, there is a lot of pressure for him to go and succeed. It doesn't mean necessarily, winning a Super Bowl. Like, I'm not going to sit there and say if they get to the AFC Championship game and lose that it's an utter failure. No, of course not. But again, like you said, if they go out and barely fix their record or somehow are worse, yeah, that's going to be a huge, huge stain on his legacy because right now it's kind of up in the air because not only, you talk about his shortcomings again relative to the other players in the room, i.e. top 10 quarterbacks, quote unquote, or the top 10 quarterbacks of all time, quote unquote. And then you're watching now a guy like Patrick Mahomes already surpass those team accomplishments in year 6. So there's a lot riding on this for Aaron Rodgers to go out there and succeed, especially on a team like the Jets. So I again, if he can go out and have a solid season, bring them to an AFC Championship game, I'd consider that a pretty positive thing for Rodgers and the Jets. But if he's not committed, if it's not, if it's not all there, all in, then guess what? It's going to be bad for him. So,
yeah, I mean, look at Joe Montana, what he did when he was in Kansas City, right? And Kansas City, they had a pretty good team. They were always contending, kind of sneaking into the playoffs. He goes there, year 1 goes to the AFC Championship game, loses at Buffalo. Year 2 gets them back in the playoffs. He retires after that. I mean, obviously his legacy was similar to Brady's because he already had 4 Super Bowls when he went to Kansas City. It was kind of shocking that they actually traded him, but, they had Steve Young, so they moved on. But Montana, I think, did his job in Kansas City, accomplished his goal. Obviously wanted to win a Super Bowl, didn't quite do that, but, he made Kansas City relevant. Heck, up until Patrick Mahomes showed up, the last time Kansas City won a playoff game was with Joe Montana in 1993. So that's how long of a gap they had without winning playoff games. Still making the playoffs, but always getting bounced in the first round. So yeah, no, this could definitely hurt him. I mean, is he going to be as bad as Russell Wilson was last year in Denver? Denver actually was worse with Russell Wilson than they were the year before with Teddy Bridgewater and other guys. Heck, didn't they play one game during the pandemic with like the fourth string quarterback because everybody else had COVID? So yeah. So I mean, if Rodgers goes to the Jets and they're 5-12, then that's a big knock against.
Well, Nathaniel Hackett is there, so you never
know.
True too. You never know.
Just his offensive coordinator and their buddies. He really does like them. And again, with a character like Aaron Rodgers, who's eccentric and tough to deal with, the offensive coordinator makes them laugh. I guess that's a start, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like the great movie star on the set that you just have someone in the movie with him because he's his buddy, his consigliere, whatever the case
keeps
may
him
be.
comfortable.
But the Jets are exactly. Kind of me with you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You just like talking to me. I don't even know what I'm talking about, but
it calms me.
It does. I try to be a calming influence.
Yes.
But the thing about the Jets, which is interesting, is so many of their players, their best players, are so young on those rookie contracts, right? Sauce Gardner, Quinnen Williams. You've got Garrett Wilson, who was offensive rookie of the year, and if he hadn't been offensive rookie of the year, Brees Hall would have been if he didn't get hurt. So they've got a bunch of young talent. Vera Tucker on the offensive line, so they can afford to pay him, but it's a 2-year window because then they're going to have to start paying those guys, and we'll see what happens if they can, shake things up for 2 years.
Well, and look, I mean, the hope is too is like when and if assuming Aaron Rodgers does go to the Jets, and whether it's for a year or two, you want the franchise to be better off when he leaves. So the hope in Tampa right now is that despite the long history of losing up until 2020, the hope is the last 3 years of Tom Brady helps change the culture of that team. The veteran leaders, they know how to win. Some of these other players know how to win. You hope that kind of continues. Now, it doesn't mean constant Super Bowl contendership, but making the playoffs and doing positive things and not falling back into the worst franchise in the history of sports that they were, the previous 34, 5 years before that, 36, whatever, 40 years. I don't know. I'm terrible math. Since 1976 until 2020. So you do the math. It's like 50 years. Okay. Clearly I couldn't do it because I was way, way off. But, so the hope is at the very least, you want to instill that winning culture within the Jets, something that just hasn't been there almost ever. So, but anyways, Jalen Ramsey head into Miami. I don't know, man. Like, it sounds nice. It does. But who knows what he's going to be next year. And the good thing for Miami is they didn't pay a lot at all. And perhaps that's kind of a sign of how teams kind of view him now, as he's a 30-year, I believe he's 31 years old now. Look, it's a nice move by Miami. I think it's a low risk move because, again, a 3rd-round pick, that's not that bad. But I just, my gut tells me it's not going to work out as well as people think.
Yeah, I mean, he slipped, I think, the last couple of years. Even the year they won the Super Bowl, all I remember is Mike Evans blowing by him in the divisional round when the Rams beat Tampa. And then in the Super Bowl, T. Higgins was torching him as well. And this is supposed to be the best cornerback in football. There's been some slippage there. He's a bigger corner. I don't know if there's been any injury concerns or the fact that he's just not aging well. I mean, Darrell Green is the unicorn of cornerbacks because he was still elite at 40 years old when he was playing. That's why he's in the Hall of Fame, obviously. But, yeah, I don't know what Jalen Ramsey is. But, again, it does seem to be a low-risk option for the Dolphins. The Dolphins are all about stars, and I think that's the way they attract attention and fans in South Florida because it's the sports fan base in South Florida wants stars. I mean, obviously they went and got LeBron and Chris Bosh to join Dwayne Wade. They won a couple of titles. I think the Miami Dolphins right now, and some of their
not 4, not 5, not 6.
Well, 2 more he'll get to 6. I think that's what I'm hoping for LeBron. Don't count him out yet. He's still pretty good. If he can ever get healthy, it is a lot to ask a 38-year-old basketball player to be healthy all the time. But yeah, but they do like the stars in South Florida, right? And again, they have like limited investors. The Dolphins, I think like Serena Williams is a limited investor, so it's all about stars there. So you're bringing in a star, see what it's all about. But they added Bradley Chubb last season they restructured his deal, like restructured Tyreek Hill's deal, so you knew something was up. Then they gave two of his 5th-year option, and now here's Jalen Ramsey. So yeah, it may just be one of those moves where it's not a huge move, but it does help someone.
Yeah, and look, I mean, they didn't pay a large price for it, so it's not like they're swinging for the fences like the Rams did to acquire him a handful of years back. I believe there was a couple first-round picks involved. So, but like I said, to start the show, this is the legal tampering start. You're going to see some deals be agreed to in principle. There's no pen to paper until Wednesday. But one of the things that kind of came out of the last couple of days was that the Buccaneers are apparently interested in Baker Mayfield. And I say, good luck. I mean, what other options do you have, really? I mean, that's kind of the point, too. So it's like, if I had to choose Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask, well, I guess I'd have to go with Baker Mayfield. I think most Buccaneers fans accept the fact that it's not going to be a good season next year. They just don't have the talent nor the cap space. I mean, again, they're taking the Tom Brady dead money cap hit this season, so they're going to be limited in what they can do there. But look, it's going to be a down year for them. I mean, the division is still pretty soft. I mean, obviously Derek Carr makes the New Orleans Saints better. How much better? That remains to be seen. But so there's a possibility the Buccaneers could still compete for a playoff spot, and who knows, maybe Baker Mayfield has a once in a lifetime season and they go on a nice little run. But it just kind of speaks to the limited options out there, even as Lamar Jackson's a non-exclusive restricted free. I mean, he's done the non-exclusive tag, so technically teams can negotiate with him, but we've already talked about it. 2 first-round picks, a boatload of money, and the idea that most teams believe that the Ravens are going to match just about any contract that is handed to them. And as one person said, why would any team want to do the work for the Ravens in this very complicated contract? So that doesn't really seem like an option. Jimmy Garoppolo's out there. Is he healthy? I don't know. So, I mean, again, based on who you have, and right now all you have is Kyle Trask, I guess Baker Mayfield is an option, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be a very good one.
There's just not enough quarterbacks to fill the needs of many teams, right? I mean, there's not enough. So that's why we'll see what happens in the draft, where you'll probably see of the first 5 picks, 4 will be quarterbacks. That wouldn't shock me, right? I mean, we've already seen the move that Carolina made to jump up to number 1. They gave a boatload to the Bears for that pick. So yeah, 4 of the top 5 picks in the draft will probably be quarterbacks, because there's a shortage of quarterbacks to fill these needs. When you got Baker Mayfield is, one of the better options. That's kind of a sad state of affairs. If I'm Tampa, I would try Trask, just see what he's about at this point. And then if it goes off the rails, maybe you're in contention for the first overall pick, and everybody feels Caleb Williams is going to be the real deal coming out of USC.
Well, look, and I keep going back to that game where Brady sat the second half, I believe the last regular season game, and they went with Blaine Gabbert. That kind of told me all I needed to know about how the team sees Kyle Trask. But yeah, I mean, and to go back to what you mentioned before, the first overall pick, we talked about it last week or the week before. If the Bears believe in Justin Fields, you trade that pick 100%. There's no need to hold on to that pick. And what they do, they went out and got a boatload of not only draft picks, but a really good wide receiver too. So that was a huge deal for them. Now, Carolina, they can obviously either use the pick or, as reports have claimed, they are shopping it, which again, I'm not sure what their strategy here is, but it kind of would seem a little backwards, but hey.
Maybe they're investors in Silicon Valley Bank too. I mean, I don't that makes no sense, does it?
Well,
you trade all of that for the first overall pick, then you trade back. There's no way you get back anything close. That makes no sense. Yeah.
Maybe one of these teams that are going to miss out on a veteran quarterback is going to be desperate closer to draft time. So maybe that's what they're thinking. Maybe they're like, okay. But worst case, but still, that seems a little far fetched, and I think that's a little bit too. That's overthinking things a little bit. So I honestly, I don't know. I obviously, I think it's a huge win for the Bears, no matter who they end up picking with all those picks.
So you get 9 in 61 this year, a first-round pick next year, and a second-round pick in 2025. And, by the way, DJ Moore, who's really good. You know, and if Justin Fields is your guy, now you start that rebuilding process. I like Justin Fields a lot. I know he has to get more accurate as a passer, but now if you add DJ Moore, maybe you draft another wide receiver, you get some pieces around him. I love his intangibles. I think he's tough. He's smart. He seems to be a great leader, you know, first guy in, last guy out, all of those things. I think he's got all of that, all those intangibles that you want in a quarterback. Great athlete. Just got to get more accurate as a passer, and hopefully he does, and he'll be a factor. But, yeah, I guess the rumor, Ian, is that Frank Reich wants C.J. Stroud, and the owner, David Tepper, wants Bryce Young. So good luck with that when the owner and the coach are disagreeing on who the best quarterback is.
That's a great start for them. So, good job there. I mean, when your owner and your head coach are completely on opposite ends of a very important question they want to ask, that's something. So, but yeah, like I said, legal tampering will start today. So we're going to obviously keep an eye on that. And tomorrow, I'm sure we'll have a whole bunch of reaction to what happened in this first day or so. So until then, though, you're going to have to listen to the show on repeat over and over and over again throughout the day. So do that by following us on Spotify, Apple, or head over to fullpresscoverage.com to check out all the latest episodes from the show and all of our shows. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we will talk to you tomorrow.